Hello, welcome back to my channel. I've just bought myself a brand new sketchbook to try out and I'm really looking forward to swatching some materials and seeing how it behaves. This is the Stillman and Birn Beta series sketchbook. It was recommended to me by the illustrator Stephanie Coleman, who I've been a fan of for many years because she illustrates a lot of natural history picture books for children, and basically that's the area of the bookshop I'm hanging out in. So she creates lovely illustrations, but she's also a really good teacher. And when she found out that I was on the hunt for the perfect sketchbook, she recommended Stillman and Birn. Now they do a number of different sketchbooks in this same format with the same kind of binding. Each has different paper weights and different paper qualities. I chose the Beta because hopefully you can see it's very white paper in here, and it's also very thick. This is a fine grain acid-free paper that's designed for watercolours. And the book comes in a number of different sizes, but I went with the pocket because I just wanted to try it out, and also it's the same size as the Talon's Art Creation sketchbook. This is a great sketchbook for coloured pencils and dry media. It can take gouache and things too, but it's not a great choice for watercolour. And the other reason I went with the small pocket size is because I know it will fit inside my notebook cover. This was made for me by my lovely friend Gemma over at Bedtime Story Company. Before she was helping little ones get off to sleep, she made these gorgeous notebook covers and also the notebooks that go in them. And I thought it would be really nice to, along with my calendar and my notes and things and my to-do lists, to maybe put a sketchbook in there as well. So if I take this off, let's have a look at it. The cover it's really soft. It's kind of rubbery. It's like a faux leather, I suppose, but it's really, really soft and beautiful. And it is a softback book, but it's, you know, because the paper's so firm, the pages are so firm, it's quite sturdy. I don't know how well it will lie flat, but I think you could probably draw across both pages there quite easily if you sort of push that spine a bit. Okay, when you get a new sketchbook, or certainly when I get a new sketchbook, it's very daunting. The last thing you want to do is make a mess of that first page. So one of the things that I like to do is swatch out my materials in the back of the sketchbook. It just sort of gets over that fear of making a mess of it. And it's also really good to see how different materials behave in a new sketchbook, because the type of paper you're using will make a huge difference to the way different media behave. So even if it's something that you're really familiar with, if you're using different paper on it, it's going to react differently. Okay, so I've got a number of different materials here, and the first thing I'm going to swatch out are some watercolours. Okay, so this is burnt sienna going on here. And yeah, the paper feels lovely with these watercolours. It's not so absorbent that they soak in straight away, so you can move them around and manipulate them a little bit. I like that. Let's just put a couple more colours on, put my favourite ones on at least. So burnt sienna is a big favourite, and another favourite is Payne's Grey. I've put that on really thick, it's very dark. If I add a bit more water, hopefully you can see that it's not so dark all the time. Okay, and another favourite colour is, where is it? Shadow Violet from Daniel Smith. This is a granulating watercolour. Put it down here. And it's made up of different pigments, so if you use it with a lot of water, the pigments can separate into different colours. I think I'm explaining that right. Anyway, the point is, if you use it with lots of water, the paint will sort of separate and you'll see different colours coming through. Okay, so those paints were just laid down wet on dry. Another thing I like to do is test them wet on wet when I have new paper. So I just put down some water and then get some paint. And then get some paint on my brush and just drop it in to see how it spreads, how it behaves. And this is where the absorbency of the water, the absorbency of the paper will come into effect as to how much it's allowed, enables it to spread. And then it's quite nice to drop in another colour and see how they behave, how they interact. Okay, that's really nice. That's very much like how I use watercolours when I'm painting animals. I drop in different colours and allow them to move around on the page and bleed into each other. So I think this is going to be a really handy little sketchbook for that kind of thing. On a similar note to the watercolours, I've also got these water-soluble graphite pencils, which I absolutely love, but I haven't used them for ages. They come in, there's 5 in the tin, they come in different grades from HB through to 8B, so if I'll swatch these out, you can use them just as a normal pencil for drawing, but they can also be activated with water, much like a water-soluble coloured pencil, a watercolour pencil, that's what I'm trying to say. I always get that wrong. Okay, so I've swatched out the different pencils from HB through to 8B, so different darknesses, and now I'm going to activate them with water. So I'm not putting too much on my brush. You can see I've laid the pencil out in quite a scribbly way, and I also haven't put it down too thickly. If I was doing a real painting here, I'd be much more careful about the pencil marks. Okay, so what I'm noticing here is because I put the pencil down in quite a scribbly way, those lines where I scribbled it down were visible, but because this paper is so thick and it's designed for watercolours, it's allowing me to really work at that, really sort of scrub at it with the water and the brush to remove those marks. And with this water-soluble graphite, you can also use it more like paint, that is, picking some of it up with a wet paintbrush. And again, I'm using the wet on wet technique here, just dropping it onto an area of water to see how it sort of spreads and behaves. That's really nice. I'm just looking for those lovely sort of bleeds and blooms, those textures that you can get. So I'm really hoping to use a lot of the water-soluble graphite in this sketchbook. Okay, I have one more water-soluble material to test out, and that is the Albrecht Dürer. I have one more water-based material to try out, and that's the water-soluble coloured pencil from Faber-Castell. This one again is in Payne's Grey because it's such a favourite colour of mine. So just like with the graphite pencils, I'm going to scribble some colour down in a sort of pebble shape to activate. I'm also going to do some lines, maybe make one of them heavy like that. Now I only have one of these pencil crayons, and I just bought it today with the sketchbook, and I used to have a set of about 40, and I really liked them, but for some reason I got rid of them and I sold them on eBay, and I can't remember why. I think I was just purging my art materials and really cutting back what I was hoarding, and I decided that they had to go, and to be honest I've regretted it ever since. Yeah, I can't remember whether there was more to it than that, whether there was more of a reason that I fell out of love with them. So I decided rather than rush ahead and buy a full set of sort of 40 or even 120, of them. I would just, every time I was buying something from the art supply shop, I would get myself 1 or 2 of these pencils just to sort of start using them again and see if I enjoy them as much as I thought I did. And something that you can do with either the graphite or the coloured pencil is to lay down some water and use it directly on the page like this. And get some lovely textures that way as well. So another one that I'm really looking forward to using in this sketchbook. I think I should have bought a different colour because I've already got a kind of grey from the graphite, but I just can't help myself when it comes to Payne's Grey. I love it. Okay, I've got a couple of the non-water soluble coloured pencils to test out. These are the Polychromos. I do have a full set of these. I'm not really planning on using them in this sketchbook, to be honest, but I thought I'll swatch them out here just to see. Okay, so this paper has a fine grain. I prefer to use coloured pencils on a much smoother paper, but it's not so textured that you can't use coloured pencils on there. So if you wanted to do something mixed media, these would be fine, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to use them. I've just realised I've got some of the Neocolour 2s by Caran d'Ache here, so I probably won't use these in this sketchbook, I don't think, but I'm going to swatch them out, or swatch one of them out in the interest of fairness. And when I do use these, I tend to use them wet, like a watercolour. Though they are great for basically drawing over the top of anything. They're so creamy and waxy, they go over pretty much anything that you've laid down. So that's one way to use them like that, just as we did with the water-soluble graphite. But you can also use it like a paint block, and just using a wet brush to pick up the colour. Which gives a much smoother result. Let's drop a bit of another colour in there to see what they do. Okay, I've got a little bit of space left here for another one of my favourite materials, which I hope to use a lot in this sketchbook, and that's the oil-based Pitt pencil from Faber-Castell. These come in, I think, 5 different intensities, is that the word? Maybe? So they go from extra hard to extra soft, and I'm going to swatch all of them out here. It's a bit hard to describe these really, exactly how they feel. They're not quite a graphite pencil, they're more similar I suppose to a coloured pencil because they're oil based, but they're not quite that either. There's something in between, and they don't have quite the same shine that graphite has. They're really nice to use, a really sort of simple, lovely drawing material. They do work better on the smoother paper, like the Royal Talens Art Creation sketchbooks, because of that sort of similarity to a coloured pencil. But yeah, they work here. I'm hoping to use those in this sketchbook as well. And since we've used those, I suppose we should swatch out a bit of graphite. One of the other things I'll do when I test out a new sketchbook, as well as just laying down the graphite, is to see how well it layers or blends on the paper. So this is 2H going through to 4B, layered on top of each other to get that gradient, and it goes down quite nicely. Now this is an area of water-soluble graphite that I put down, and it's now dried, so what I want to do is drop some watercolour, or mix some watercolour over the top of that, because once it's dried the graphite can't be reactivated, or it shouldn't be. So you can work in these sort of glazes like you would with watercolour, and I just want to see how nice they look together. Oh, I think they look really good together. I'm hoping to use in this sketchbook a mix of all these materials, maybe not so much the Neocolour, but watercolour, water-soluble graphite, and these oil-based pencils. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit careful here because some of them are still wet. You might be able to see now how the shadow violet has dried and separated into pink and blue pigments. And I've written on what each of the swatches are, and I've also added a couple more in there. So this is water-soluble graphite with Neocolour, which worked really nicely. And here water-soluble graphite, and here the watercolour pencil, both used as a paint. So that means taking a wet brush, lifting up some of the pigment and applying it just as you would with a watercolour paint. So although I haven't painted anything in this sketchbook yet, my verdict from these little tests on this page is that it is a really nice sketchbook. I'm really looking forward to using it. So because the pages are so heavyweight, I probably won't use this as a sketchbook for just sort of playing around and experimenting in. I don't think I'll use it for things like quick pencil sketches. What I'll probably do is just stick with the watercolours and the water-soluble pencils in here, and probably have to get some more watercolour pencil crayons as well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to using it.